Y'all haven't won a Super Bowl since 1991. Ain't been back. Ain't been an NFC championship game. So when we look at this team right now, moving forward, as you dissect what's going on, how big of a role do you feel overseeing the business side of matters will positively affect this franchise on the football field? Because it's nice to have you in there, and I have no doubt that you and Julie can do the job. But in the end, if the team stinks, hey.
I mean, I don't know what you know about Coach Rivera, but he's a pretty fantastic coach.
He's good. He's good.
Yeah, and there's a great young talent on the squad, and I feel great about the trajectory that's happening over there. I think we do have an impact, not as much as the players on the field, but we do have an impact on how they operate. One thing we can do right away is make sure that all the stuff we do around business operations is structured in a way that allows the team to focus across the week. And that's something that I have a feel for as a former player, knowing the times when it's good to bring players into community and charitable stuff and sponsors and when it's not. We know how to give players a voice in what we do in facing the community, and that's going to expand our brand and expand our value. So there are things that we can absolutely do that are going to make it better, but ultimately it's the guys between the lines and it's the coaches and the strategy and all that. It'd be silly to say we have the ability to drive that in a real way.
You mentioned earlier that the important thing is that the most qualified candidates got the job. It's not that a black man, a woman, various members, you said that of demographic representation got these jobs that are diverse. It's that the most qualified candidates got the jobs. How much do you think our current situation as a country, especially with the conflagration after the George Floyd murder, in the face of this pandemic and recession, how much do you think that opened up this opportunity, particularly when Dan Snyder had obstinately refused to change the name, and then such economic pressure was brought to bear that he buckled and had to change the name, and now suddenly we see demographic installation of diverse demographic representation in these important positions, making him or rehabilitating his image in that way. I'd like your thoughts on that if you have them.
Yeah, well, maybe I can just tell you the kind of conversations that Dan, Tanya, and I had leading up to this. We didn't talk about race. We didn't talk about, civil rights. We didn't even really talk about my research on racial equity and stuff that I've done previously, which is an area of passion of mine. We talked about disruptive technologies and how they can expand the business. We talked about financial operations. Talked about what it means to build a great stadium. And we did touch on equity a bit there, and doing a stadium with equitable principles that gets capital into all parts of the D.C., Maryland, Virginia community in a way that boosts economic development. But we talked about business. We talked about doing the role. We talked about culture. We talked about, setting things right where they need to be set right in the organization. We talked about charting a new course, having a new public narrative about the club. We didn't talk about like, hey, man, it's really good that you're black. That's going to help me. That didn't come up. And so, insofar as I see my mandate for the role based on those conversations, it's about business. And the fact that I'm black, I will be unapologetically black throughout my tenure in this role. So it'll show up, but it's not the lead here.
And Jason, how do you personally plan on going about making sure that the behavioral and the harassment allegations that led to the investigation into the franchise never happen again to any woman within the organization?
Yeah, so one of the things that gave me a lot of confidence in taking this role, and I've done this sort of work with other organizations in my previous job. The first thing that the team decided to do was bring in this independent internal investigator. And that's critical. And it's actually a really big step because you are opening the curtain to see all the big uglies that exist across the organization around culture. And that's a really bold first step. And that gave me confidence that there was real commitment to getting this done. I don't know the details yet. I start next Monday. But no matter where the starting point is, if it's better or worse than I think it is, I know where we're going. We're going into a culture where every colleague is empowered to raise their voice and have input on the most critical decisions. We're moving to one where women have real representative say in leadership decisions that shape the franchise in fundamental ways, not just because it's the right thing to do and we need to get it right, but it's also the business imperative, because we know that when you have more than one woman in a leadership decision, when you have more than one minority in leadership decision, it actually gets you to better business decisions and better outcomes over time. So if I'm all about expanding the value of this franchise, we have to get this right for a business reason as well as, for doing the right thing.
Listen, I just wanted to make a statement rather than a question itself. I think you've comported yourself exceptionally well during this interview, and I think it's important to say that because I think one of the things that have really, really served to hurt the franchise, I happen to know Daniel Snyder a little bit. I actually like him a lot, and I think that he tries to do a lot of things right, although I think he was incredibly wrong on the whole Native American thing involving the team name. Having said all of that, it's important that a voice like yourself is out front and center because we all know Daniel Snyder ain't the most comfortable dude in front of the camera. And obviously how folks project, how the franchise is projected to the masses means a lot. And I think it's going a long way by having somebody you in that position. So congratulations to you. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.